Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here. Today's episode is brought to you by Franchise 5. Why Franchise 5? I'm glad you asked. Growing your franchise in a slow, deliberate, and thoughtful manner is a smart way to grow. Franchise 5 helps you do this by expanding 5 locations at a time with a Zen-like focus on the geographic locations that make sense for your growth. To learn more about this, go to franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. That's the number 5. So franchiseeuphoria.com/franchise5. Now to today's episode. So on today's episode, we're going to talk once again about a unique, different, interesting franchise concept. And the reason I enjoy doing these type of episodes every once in a while and popping in myself and talking about this is really to help educate people on the different aspects and the broad nature of the franchise world. So many people believe that franchising is literally McDonald's and Subway and a few others, and they have no idea that franchising spans across our entire economy. Obviously, any franchise that I mention here, I am not endorsing. I've not done research on. That's obviously left to you and to your advisors to help with as you go through that process. But I do think it's a worthwhile exercise to talk about some interesting and unique concepts, both because it's just interesting and unique, I think, and I'm fascinated by that. And the other thing is just to give you an idea of the different types of businesses that have been franchised over the years. One that I'm going to talk about today is called the Anger Room. Now, the Anger Room is a franchise that provides people with a room that's staged with donated electronics, furniture, mannequins, and tons of other breakable items where the customers come in and can work out their aggression. So you suit up in protective gear, you use blunt objects of your choice, such as baseball bats, golf clubs, crowbars, sledgehammers, and you pulverize everything in sight. You just run around the room and just get all your anger out. I mean, think about that. It's called the Anger Room, and it's a franchise. They turned this idea of release of aggression into a franchise concept. And apparently there's a fair amount of people who enjoy doing it. As I'm reading this article about them, it looks like customers pay $25 and up for sessions ranging from 5 to 25 minutes. Wow. I guess you got to give a little bit of thought as to how angry you are before you go to the Anger Room to get all your aggression out. But think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. There is a concept out there that somebody developed, that somebody thought, wow, there's a lot of people in this world who have a lot of anger. There's a lot of people who just want a release. Why don't we create a room where everything can just be destroyed? And that's the business concept. I mean, it's quite fascinating. I got to be honest. I've never heard of such a thing, but that just gives you an idea of the breadth of franchise opportunities out there. You know, I always get people who ask me, what's the most unique franchise you've ever heard, or the most different franchise, or the hottest franchise? That's actually the most popular question I get. So what's the hottest franchise? But I got to tell you, this whole Anger Room franchise is pretty doggone unique. I've never heard of anything like this, but it just goes to show you that when you're answering a need, when you're filling a void in the marketplace, when you're looking at what are the problems that people are having and how can I solve them, well, you can come up with all sorts of different concepts. You just have to make sure that there's a market for those concepts. You know, it's interesting. I don't know how the Anger Room operates. I don't know if, as a franchisee, when you look into a concept like this, I mean, do you try to identify what's the most angry location you can move into? I mean, I don't know how all this works. I don't even know where these rooms are located, but I'm certainly fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by the idea that there's a room where you can just go and destroy things to get your aggression out, to get your anger out. And, you know, maybe that helps people move on, get it out of their system, and move on with their day. Of course, before you're going to buy into a concept like this, before you're going to look at creating a concept like this, you really got to think about what you're trying to achieve. And I always encourage people in the franchise space, don't think about the end game as much as you're thinking about who you're trying to help and what problem you're trying to solve. So many people, when they think about a business, they think about how much money they're going to make. That's their end game. And they neglect to think about how valuable is their solution to the problem going to be. The longest standing franchises I know of are the ones that continuously ask that question. How can they continue to provide value-added solutions for people's problems? How can they serve a need in the marketplace? And one of the things that I think can be disproven, in franchising, there's a lot of misconceptions and myths. In fact, I did a blog article about this way back in 2013 called 3 Common Misconceptions About Buying a Franchise. And one of the misconceptions I write about is that there's no creativity in franchising. And that really can't be further from the truth. I mean, look no further than, the franchise I'm talking about today, which is the Anger. I mean, good God, it takes a whole lot of creativity to create that kind of franchise system. And I imagine that in the various locations that they have, you probably got a lot of opportunity to put different things in that room that can be destroyed. So the only way in which franchising is limited from a creativity perspective is if the franchisor doesn't have a viewpoint that allows for it. There's nothing wrong with creating a franchise system that can be creative and can be localized to the communities that it's in. And I would argue that that's a very important thing to be contemplated when you're looking at setting up a franchise in a particular location and you're looking at buying a franchise in a particular location. So in any event, just thought I'd talk a little bit today about another unique and different franchise system, mostly just to spark your interest, spark your curiosity, and really drive home this one point. And that is, when you're thinking about a franchise business, when you're thinking about whether your business can be franchised, just remember there's a whole lot of unique opportunities out there. There's a whole lot of unique businesses out there. And if you can match a real need in the marketplace with a systemized process that's repeatable and that can be taught to others, then there's a pretty good chance that you can turn your business into a franchise if you so desire, and if that becomes the way in which you want to grow your business. So hope you enjoyed this episode. And like I said, I'm still amazed at this whole idea that there's a franchise called the Anger Room where you go and destroy things to get your aggression out. But in any event, I'm sure there's a whole lot others out there that I'll probably take a look at and come back on in another episode and talk about. But until next time, I hope you have an enjoyable day. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.